speakers because you'll have feedback because there's a delay.
Okay.
Let me give you the exact link. We don't have any viewers at the moment. Let me do the exact same thing. Let me hit the share. And this way you can see the YouTube chat too.
Okay, cool.
So
should I mute the YouTube link audio?
Yeah, the one I just gave you, mute that audio.
Okay.
And that way you won't have feedback going through your speakers. So
Okay.
Hello, 2 viewers. We've got 2 people watching us, right? 3. They're increasing. They're slowly coming in.
All right.
And let me pull up the YouTube chat over here so I can see what they're saying. Hello, Ryan Reed. Awesome. Yes, indeed, it's awesome. Can you see the chat?
Yep, I just saw Ryan Reed. Right, awesome. So,
awesome. Yeah. Okay, let me pull up my notes and we will start. All right, coming down in 3, 2. Hey, Crawl Spacers, welcome to this special episode. We have Bryan Intihar. He's with Insomniac Studios, and he put out this awesome game right here, Spider-Man for the PS4. Bryan, thank you so much for coming on the Crawl Space. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
And first of all, let's get a little background. Well, first, I want to compliment you for making the best Spider-Man game I've ever played, and I've been playing them since Atari 2600, so thank you for that.
You're very welcome.
What was the first Spider-Man video game you played? Do you remember?
Oh God, I mean, I know I definitely played the Atari.
Yeah.
I would say but one of the, and I played some of the, Super Nintendo games, but I think for me it really kind of kicked in when I played the Spider-Man game for the PlayStation 1. It was made by Neversoft, who did the Tony Hawk games.
Right.
Really was kind of that first time I really felt like Spider-Man in the game, and yeah, since then it's been Spider-Man, Spider-Man, Spider-Man.
It's hard to believe that video game came out like in 2000. It's like an 18-year-old game, and I thought that was actually I thought the Atari was the best we're ever going to get. So the graphics in our time frame have just increased so much, and Spider-Man's a good gauge of how advanced the graphics have gotten.
Yeah, it's one of those characters that's kind of been with us for basically since the beginning of games. Like you said, since the 2600.
Yeah,
and it's kind of a good example of the evolution of the industry.
So before we get into the game, let's get a little bit of background of you and Spider-Man. You said your first one was the Atari you played. When were you first exposed to Spider-Man? Was it the movies or the comics or what?
Oh, I would say before that it was Underoos.
Wow.
I was an Underoos guy, and I remember it was Underoos and action figures were my 2 things. And I remember when I was really young, my mom used to tell me, and I don't remember this, but she told me that I was so obsessed with Underoos and superheroes that what I would do is I would actually wear like up to 8 Underoos t-shirts at once, because I wasn't sure which superhero I wanted to be that day. And then what I would do is I would take my Spider-Man action figure, and when she was shopping, I would like create different scenarios, like in the department stores and stuff. And
that's awesome.
From there, rolled into obviously comics and cartoons, and then obviously when the Raimi movies came out, it just kind of gravitated. And over the years, would get into comics for a while. Then something would get busy, and I would go back and forth. But since I graduated college in God, was it 2000 now? I'm an old man, and it's been part of my life for a long time.
Same. And I think we're about the same age. I'm 43. Are you about the same age?
41, yeah.
41, there you go. So it sounds like you were layering your Underoos.
I really was. And it's I wish I had a picture of it, because the 2 things I remember is I don't remember exactly, but I also remember having one Christmas I got these inflatable Hulk muscles. And I would go around like flexing around the around the house and thinking I was the Hulk. So
you would make Lou Ferrigno proud.
Yeah, Spider-Man and Hulk are my 2 favorites.
Okay, we're instant friends right now. Those are my top 2 Marvel.
Yeah.
By the way, if they don't put Spider-Man and Hulk in the Avengers 4 for some kind of scene, like I'm going to be so disappointed.
Yeah, that's definitely that would be a lot of humor there for sure.
No doubt. So let's talk about your job at Insomniac. You're the creative director. So tell me what the creative director does.
Believe it or not, I do more than just play the game. I mean, my main job responsibility is to come up and get the team to understand what the overall vision for the game is. So,
Mhm.
what are we kind of say, what are our pillars for the game? What are those 3 or 4 big tentpole things that we're going to build the game around? And on the more day-to-day stuff, I'm definitely very much involved in crafting the story, working alongside our writers, our Marvel team, as well as a bunch of other people at Insomniac, as well as our publisher Sony. And then obviously day to day helping people with whatever they want, whether it's a review of a mission, combat, swinging, playing some of the side content, looking at the art, reviewing cinematics, going to cinematic shoots, talking with our publisher Sony, talking with our partners Marvel, make sure they understand what we're doing, getting their feedback, helping bring it back to the team, understand how we're going to do it. So it's a busy job.
It sounds sort of like a director of like a film, but there are a director of video games too, aren't there?
Yes, yeah. I mean, basically, that is pretty much the equivalent. Would be a director, but obviously, I would say that even though my job is helping come up with the vision, a lot of the work is done by the team, and really working with the various directors like our art director Jacinda, our game director Ryan Smith, and then many other people, our animation director Bobby, and all the different people to make sure that vision is being carried through. Because, as you guys know, these games take a lot of different people to put together. It's a lot. I will tell you, whatever idea I had for the game only got better because of the team we had making it.
That early idea, what was your early idea? Because it's Peter Parker 8 years in, I think.
Yeah, that was one thing we said right off the bat was, when we were brought with the opportunity of making this game, we knew we did not want to just do another origin story. And we found very quickly that people did not want another origin story. So we said, well, what would be another time in his life that people would really be interested in? And I didn't want to do Married with Kids because we all know that hasn't had the best history either in comics. And then we're thinking, well, what are times in our own lives that we can remember or really have a big impact? And I was thinking, well, when I graduated college, that was a really impactful moment in my life where I was, out my own, paying my own bills, living my own for the first time, and also trying to make a name for myself in my career. I thought, wouldn't that be an interesting time to explore for Peter and have a moment in everybody's life, whether they went to college or went right to the workforce, that they could relate to.
Right. We're also streaming this on YouTube, and Shane Norman says, I had those Hulk muscles too. So you should search on eBay if you can find how much those are.
There is a picture somewhere. I have to talk to my mom about it, but there is a picture of me with the Hulk muscles somewhere.
So that's one of my favorite things about the game is it's Peter Parker, Spider-Man, 8 years in. He is not asking Tony Stark for help. He doesn't have the Avengers come in to save the day like Homecoming does. I like a smart, intuitive Peter Parker that creates his own stuff.
Yeah. I mean, I think you're talking to one of the biggest Marvel movie fans ever. So, and I think what they do is great. I think that what we wanted to do was we wanted to tell our own story. We didn't want to just retell the same story that you've seen in the movies or even read in the comics, right? Because you've experienced it before. That being said, we also wanted to be really, really true to the DNA of the character. And we understood our thinking was, if we understood what this character is about, we understand that, the Peter side of him is the relatable, vulnerable, somewhat kind of cutely dorky kind of guy.
Yeah.
Almost like in a way that you just find them, really fun. And then I'll say the Spider-Man, who's much more confident, uses humor, perseveres. And when those two worlds collide, that's what makes a great Spider-Man experience. And we thought if we're going to be true to that, then we can take more liberties of like changing up some things like where Peter works, who he works for, his relationship with MJ, what MJ's doing, the inclusion of Miles in the same universe, and then like Norman as the mayor, Triple J as the radio host, those kind of things. We felt like as long as we're being true to the character and the DNA is staying the same, we can take more risks.
Right. And as a Spider-Man fan, that's one of my favorite parts is when the normal Peter Parker life interferes with the Spider-Man life and vice versa.
Yeah.
And one of the most in the game that was most heart-wrenching was the text message with MJ. It's over. Like, I mean, that really pulled on your heartstring because you've got a lot of time in this game, and the girl is breaking up with you. You felt it in this game.
Yeah, I remember that was one of the scenes actually we added as you probably know, video games are really hard to make,
Yeah.
and sometimes what reads great on a page does not always come through when you start playing the game. And we had to do some, and you always hear, you guys, the reports of Marvel doing reshoots, right? Because you're kind of looking at the story as you're putting together the movie, the game, and just think some things aren't there. And actually, that was one of the scenes that we added a little bit later in development, because we knew we needed that emotional moment between MJ and Peter. And it's that classic Spider-Man dilemma where when Spider-Man succeeds, Peter fails, and vice versa. So he's just taken down Martin Lee, yet he's having troubles again with MJ. So we wanted to kind of get that through and get it in a more modern take. And as my friend said to me when he played the game, I've had that text message before. I've had that. Yeah. I've had that conversation. So it was a great job of our writers and our animators bringing that to life.
No doubt. Do you have a favorite scene? That's one of my favorites in the game.
That's a great scene. God, I would probably say the final. Well, two scenes, and they both involve Otto. I would say the scene where they're the ball juggling about halfway through, where Otto reveals his illness to Peter.
Yeah,
and just because that was actually the first time we shot with Peter and Otto together on stage. I just knew the chemistry was there, and those scenes were going to be really special. So that kind of really stays pretty true to me. Right. But I would say that the scene where after Peter has defeated Otto, and that kind of final confrontation where you really see the true emotion of a Spider-Man story, and you kind of question is when Otto talks about his identity and stuff, is Otto changed forever? Is Otto now really Ock forever? It's one of those things. I just feel like it has a lot of layers to it, and not to mention it's the end of the game, and I'm like, oh god, we actually did it. It's going to be good.
Yeah, that fight on the side of the building was really fun. That was I liked that a lot.
And that was actually something that, funnily enough, it wasn't actually. It was funny. About 3 years before that, when we were just kind of concepting like some really big moments in the game, we had a moment where Peter and Otto were fighting the side of a building, and then as we started making the mission, we kind of got away from that. But then we went back and we said, well, what's that fantasy we want to see? And we talked about that moment of them fighting on the side of a building, him sticking obviously with his Spider-Man abilities and Otto using whatever arms he has left. And we just thought it was really that nice final emotional moment where it's really just raw strength and power that they're using. And it's very emotional, especially with the music and what they're saying to each other. So again, I give all the credit to that mission team for delivering on that.
The ending, we'll talk spoilers. The ending. You killed Aunt May, dude. What?
She was really mean to me during one day of shooting, so I said, let's kill her. No.
Well, the old woman's died several times in the comics, so I mean, she gets better. But
I think that one thing, I think that some of us go through when we get older is that people close to us start passing away. Now, obviously, some of us lose people earlier than others, but I think that is a sign. One thing I've noticed as I've gotten older is that, hey, people that were really important to me are not around. My grandfather passed away when I was in my 20s. Same thing with a couple of my other grandparents. I was extremely close to my grandfather, and that definitely left a mark on me. And I felt like it kind of reminded me, hey, I'm getting older. There's going to be loss. There's going to be choices. And I think that we wanted Peter to, a lot of us called this his next coming of age story, his journey of becoming a young adult. I think dealing with loss is something that people do suffer when they get older, and we wanted to see how Peter would handle that. And I thought that the other thing is we didn't want to do it for shock value. That was really important to me. So actually, we went back and forth whether she was, do we kill her, do we not kill her? And I actually had some people come to the company a little bit later in development, and we just had them play through. And I said, do you feel like the death was earned? And they said, oh, definitely. And so I think, again, mixing things up, surprising people, and
it was
for Peter.
It was like we were talking earlier. That was an ultimate Spider-Man's world colliding with Peter Parker's world. Does he give her the antidote or not?
Yep.
and he chose to be the hero by sacrificing someone he loves. So
Yep.
it was very much earned, I thought, but
Thank you.
it was a curveball, and I didn't think you'd do it. I thought,
Yeah, we went back and forth on it a lot, and we just felt
Yeah.
like that it was the ending that needed to happen. As much as we loved Aunt May and the person Nancy Linari who played her,
good.
we just felt like that was the right move for the game.
Javi in YouTube chat wants to know if Amazing 400 was an influence where Aunt May died.
Not really. I tried not to. I tried to use the comics as a way to understand all these characters, not just to repeat a storyline. I'm sure there's things that, like you said, like Amazing 400 brings up the Aunt May death. I didn't want to just tell the same story you guys people have read or experienced before. Not to say that, hey, it's been almost like 55 years of Spider-Man comics. They've covered a lot of ground, and it's hard to surprise people.
Yeah.
We want to do it in our own way. So I would say that we really use the comics to understand where the character has gone, where is he going, and understand the DNA of all the characters, both Peter, MJ, as well as any acquaintance and or villain.
Yeah. And the Devil Breaker says, I've never seen this ending in Spider-Man media actually stick. It was so beautiful. I felt for the whole moment. So yeah, Spider-Man fans are digging the ending.
Thank you.
Now, if you would have killed Marissa Tomei, we would have had problems now.
Yes.
So we were talking about changes from the source material. Peter was working for Doc Ock. Norman wasn't the Goblin. He's the mayor. Mary Jane's a reporter. Miles' father dies. Talk about those changes. Well, let's start with Mary Jane as a reporter. How did that come about?
So it's a really great question. I think that it wasn't that we wanted to make her a reporter. That what we wanted to do was we wanted MJ. MJ is a great character, and I mean, there's a reason why she's in the game because I'm a big fan.
Awesome.
But I wanted to make sure that we weren't. I feel like the story of the model and the club owner has been told a lot before, and I really didn't. Maybe I'm just not smart enough, which is totally possible. Most likely, that how do we tell the story, a really rich emotional story between Peter and MJ, where we see those two worlds collide? And we thought, well, and also make her a much more capable contributor to the story. We really wanted, right off the bat, we said we don't want her to be the next another damsel in distress.
Thank goodness. We did
not want to do that. It's been done before. It's very dated, and here at Insomniac and in my life, we have some really amazing women who are amazingly smart, talented, and very, very capable. And we wanted to make sure that we're representing that right way and representing that in our Spider-Man universe. So we just figured, well, what kind of role that she could kind of be in Peter's life, but also somehow involved in the Spider-Man side. And we thought, well, reporter would be that would be a logical move. So it really was the higher level idea of making her a much more capable contributor to the story that would cross over the Peter and Spider-Man stories. And we just landed on a reporter.
And, dating back, like I told you, I've been playing almost every Spider-Man game since Atari. The 1990 Spider-Man game was the first damsel in distress of Mary Jane. And I think it's been repeated over and over and over. And I'm glad that she's such a great character that making her just yell help is an injustice to the character.
Yeah. I totally agree.
Yeah. Also, changing Ock to be his coworker or his mentor, and Osborn. These are his two big villains, and they haven't become villains in your game, but the other ones have.
Yep. Yeah. So I think that in many ways, writing a villain is harder than the hero because it's so easy to put them in what I call like the mustache twirly area where it just kind of feels like they're being a bad guy for the sake of being a bad guy. I can't remember who said this. I do remember Dan Slott quoting it on Twitter many years ago. The best villains are the heroes of their own story. And that was kind of the philosophy we went through with everything. So with whether it's Mr. Negative or Otto especially, we wanted to make sure that players understood the motivations of the character. They felt three-dimensional. There is an emotional angle to what they're doing. And what was really great was that we had the Mr. Negative character to kind of let us do a little bit of a slower burn on Otto to kind of build that relationship. So when he does finally become Ock, it actually hurts a little bit more. And the thing that was really been great to hear is that some people, I kind of, this is like the stages of dealing with Otto for players. They see Otto in that second mission, they go, oh, he's gonna become Doc Ock.
Yeah.
And over the course of that act and the next act, you start to go, well, is he gonna be a bad guy? I don't know, because you start to really like him. Exactly. And then we kind of obviously pull the rug underneath you, and he becomes Ock. And we thought that was just a really interesting way to handle that. And in classic Peter, great, having Peter be partly responsible for creating one of his greatest villains, we thought was a pretty cool angle.
And it's I like that you don't take the obvious choice. You do we kill Aunt May? Do we not? That the hard one is to kill her. The easy one is to save the day and roll credits. So, same with Doc Ock and Norman. Let's see, what else do we want to talk about? The white spider logo on the chest. That's never been seen until your game. Talk about the decision to make your own. Here, you made your. When you see that, you know that's your game. That like. There's no other Spider-Man like that. Talk about why the white spider.
Well, you're kind of going down the answer, but I'll tell you. Well, first of all, when we revealed the white spider, I knew right away that people were going to be interested in this game because the amount of feedback we got on the suit right away was I was like, okay, this is a very big topic, and this is a very popular character. And what we wanted to do was, I really wanted the suit to, and talking with Jacinda, our art director, we wanted it to really be a symbol for what our philosophy of the game was about. It was the idea of mixing with the familiar with the fresh, staying true to the DNA of the franchise, but not being afraid to mix things up. And if you look at our suit, you showed it on the box. There's no mistaking that's Spider-Man. You see the classic red colors, the eyes, just the overall design is very traditional. But there are some change-ups. You see the, he doesn't really have the classic boots that you're used to seeing. And then obviously the big one is the white spider. And we wanted something like, we see it, you go, that's Insomniac Spider-Man. And, one of the other reasons, and when you play the game, you understand how the white spider comes to be. For people who haven't played it yet, you'll understand very early how the white spider comes to be. But there's also a very big benefit to the when you actually play the game, seeing that big white spider while you're swinging around makes it easier to see your character.
Oh, that's a good point. I played the white spider throughout the whole thing because I felt that was the universe. I played that, and I'm currently 94% done with the main mission. Okay. And now I'm playing with the alternate suits. I unlocked the Avengers one. I was playing with that the other night.
All right, so what's your favorite one?
I guess the white. I like the white a lot, and the classic. And I like that you started the game with the classic.
Yeah.
Like if you would have started it with the white, I think that would have turned a lot of fans off. But introducing the white by Otto helping make it, I thought that was solid.
Yeah, the suits are one of the best things in the game, but also probably one of the most controversial things because it's also kind of a good example of like we want to please everybody, but at the end of the day, it's hard to please everybody, and there are more suits on the way, and I think people are in for some really cool surprises.
What is your favorite suit? Since you heard mine,
I would say It's funny. I love the Infinity War suit because of the suit power with the arms.
Oh yeah.
But because that was interesting enough, like one of my things I asked for really early was the Iron Spider arms. I wanted them really, really bad. Like I wanted them actually. In one of the ideas I was talking about, like, could Peter develop his own set of like arms to fight Ock and stuff like that? And it wasn't really working. But then we kind of started coming with this idea of suit powers. It was a natural thing, and I kept poking and prodding because those arms are really hard to make. And thanks to our combat team, they did it. But I would say, like, if I had to pick one suit that I really love, I love the homemade suit from Homecoming.
Oh, really?
Because the job that the team did, just getting like it feeling like cloth, and even when he's hanging upside down, the little like the lace.
They fall down. Down? That's cool.
But I will tell you, my favorite suit has yet to be revealed, and it's coming out in the next DLC in Winter Force. My favorite, and it's not one that I was hoping for, but when I saw it designed, it quickly became my favorite.
There's a tease. I like that. Yeah. Talk about the deep cuts. I like from an album. I heard some deep cuts in this game that I loved. Like on the Black Cat mission, he mentions the country singer Lonesome Pinky. And like, you really got to be a deep cut to know who Lonesome Pinky is, the country singer. And also, Spider-Man talks about a Nazi skeleton covered in bees. Who came up with these obscure references that only true fans know about?
Well, it helps when you hire a Spider-Man writer to help with the game.
Okay.
Chris Gage, who works with Marvel, he's actually writing the Spider-Geddon right now.
Yeah.
And he worked a lot with Dan Slott on Spider-Man. We hired Christos to be one of our writers. And so like all the JJJ stuff is all Christos. And
it was great.
He's always he's always looking for those like the hardest of hardcore name drops or mentions, but also like John Pickett, one of our lead writer, Ben Arfman, our other writer, they're big fans. And when you start, we're always looking for those opportunities to kind of wink and nod at the hardest of hardcore fans, because even like, listen, I'm not going to win a trivia contest probably against you or a lot of people, but I feel like I know enough, and we're always looking for those opportunities to make sure people understand, hey, we really care about this character in this franchise.
Yeah. And I said it earlier, I love how Peter solves his own problems, and he has a lot of tech. By the way, the web blossom I keep coming back to. That thing just solves a lot of problems for me, where you splatter a lot of them on the wall. I love the tech in this game. And that's one of Insomniac's cornerstones is the tech, right?
Yeah, I mean that was it was funny. People ask me why Spider-Man. I go, because it's kind of a perfect marriage, of we're known for, between whether it's Ratchet or Resistance or Sunset Overdrive, we're known for making fun weapons and gadgets. And if you think Peter's known for creating his own tech and creating his own gadgets, so it kind of felt like a perfect marriage. And we really wanted to push the science angle with Pete. We wanted to get the science engineering side. We mentioned the origin story has been kind of done to death. Well, so is kind of like the photographer for the Daily Bugle has kind of been done a lot. So we wanted to kind of move him up, and I really think the science angle really helps.
Right. One question I meant to ask earlier on is, how did the game come about? Did Marvel and Sony come to you, or how did it come about?
Yeah, so I mean, it's really an easy story. A few years ago, we were finishing up Sunset Overdrive, and Sony came by talking to Ted Price, our president and CEO, and just happened to ask, would you ever be interested in working with Marvel? And I guess Sony and Marvel had been talking at the time. I don't really know where those conversations were going. And Ted kind of asked a few of us, and I was one of the first people he asked. And I think my quote was like, yeah, I'd cut off my left arm to work on a Marvel game, because I really wanted to see those characters done as well as possible. And I remember, and Ted's the kind of president, and it's very rare that someone like Ted wants to do things that the team is excited about. I really think he really cares about making the studio happy and giving people what they work on, what they're passionate about. And I remember in a company meeting soon thereafter that meeting, Ted was talking about some future projects and where the company was going, and he just put the Marvel brick, the red brick, up on the screen. Really hear everybody gasp. And that's when I knew, we're doing a Marvel game. And then we just kind of figured out, well, what character do we want to work on? And I just said, well, it has to be Spider-Man. There's no one fits our studio better than Spider-Man, and it was just a good fit.
And one thing that was surprising is it was a PlayStation exclusive. It wasn't released on Xbox. Is that because Sony had the idea, or what was the?
It was, I mean, obviously, you guys know, Sony is a hardware maker. They've made the PlayStation, and they're always looking for exclusives, and this was a possible exclusive. So it was just the right place, right time, right partners, right partnership, and easily by far the greatest almost 4 years of my professional career.
So it was 4 years development of this game?
Roughly between 3.5, 4 years. Yeah.
And you had some great casting too for voices. The Peter Parker actor is amazing, literally amazing.
Yuri Lowenthal is great, and it's funny. Yuri was actually on Sunset Overdrive. You could play either a male or a female, and Yuri was the male voice actor for Sunset Overdrive. And I remember John Pickett our lead writer, going, Yuri, I think would be good for this. And I was like, yeah, he probably would be, but let's look for somebody else. We started looking around. We were doing auditions, and John would just say, well, what about Yuri? And I'd say, no, that's not yet. And eventually I brought him in, and I put him through the ringer. And I really did put him through the ringer, and I made him do like 3 or 4 different auditions. And I remember it was coming down to 2 different people, and they were both really, really good. It was Yuri and somebody else. Mm-hmm. And I was actually on vacation at the time, and I was listening to their final samples they did for VO. And I just closed my eyes, and I said, which one is Peter Parker? And it was Yuri. And he did he really made Spider-Man and Peter Parker who you heard. I mean, he took the words that were written and the ideas that we're trying to get across and just took it to a whole nother stratosphere.
Two other actors I think did a great job: the Mary Jane actress and the J. Jonah Jameson.
Fantastic.
Talk about those two also.
Yeah, so Laura, as if she stars in a lot of video games. She was on Uncharted 4. She's going to be. She was in Infamous. She was in Halo. She was in Gears of War. She's going to be in The Last of Us 2.
Wow.
She is one of the most talented people I've ever worked with, and I think she auditioned for about 3 roles, and I basically said, I'm like, she could be any of them. And,
that's a good problem to have.
Yeah, it was a really good problem to have, and I just, I brought her. We had cast Yuri first as Spider-Man, and I said, well, who's going to work best with Yuri? And we actually had Laura do her final audition with Yuri, and I knew within the first 2 lines they said to each other that this was our MJ. It wasn't about whether Laura was going to be in the game; it was what role was she going to be in. And once kind of we saw the how important the MJ character was going to be to the story, we knew we needed an actor who was going to bring that level of talent to it. And she just like Yuri, killed it when it came to MJ.
How about the J. Jonah Jameson actor?
Oh, Darren DePaul. So
awesome. I never stop listening to him because it sounds like he's got a new line every time I'm swinging.
He's great. The thing about Darren was Darren, he was one of the people first auditioned, and then we had some notes for him. And this is the first time it's ever happened to me. We gave Darren some notes, and then he goes, hey, my next audition, can you guys just be on the phone and give me feedback? And it was the first time I've ever had somebody actually want live feedback on their audition for like a voiceover role. And when he started talking about the J. Jonah Jameson character, it was obvious that he knew the character really well. And I literally was like, is he like on his computer, like looking up Wikipedia and like just giving us stuff that we wanted, but he knew the character really well. And then he just, I mean, as you guys know, he just nailed it. And when you take the stuff that Christo wrote, and then you take the stuff that Darren says, and it's magic.
I don't know if he looks the part, but he could totally be the MCU J. Jonah Jameson if he looks close to it.
What I really like about him is that it is very much J. Jonah Jameson, but it's his take on what Jameson can be. Right. And it's really, I mean, like there was in the Black Cat DLC, I remember I was away for a while. I came back, and our game director, Ryan Smith, had me play through all the content. Mm-hmm. And there was one line in particular where I just I really LOL'd. Like I really laughed out loud. I was like, oh my God, this is brilliant. So yeah, Darren's fantastic.
That's all the questions I have. I'm going to open. I've got some on the message board, and I've got a couple from Facebook the other day.
Sure.
One is from Jack. He wants to know about how did you guys go about nailing down what would be in the final game?
Well, it's a lot of things. We start with, what's the most important thing for the game? Obviously we know that, we could, that's why you create pillars. What are the 3 or 4 things that are really going to drive the whole experience? And what we would do is this supporting those pillars? And then the second thing is, the scope of the game. Can we make this game at the highest quality with the time we have left? And that's what kind of drives the thing. It's the overall creative vision with the time we have left and the scope of and the people we have. And for us, it wasn't about creating 100 hours of gameplay. It was creating as many gameplay hours as possible at the highest quality we could, and that's kind of the game you get.
Jack has 2 more questions. He says, I imagine the development life cycle for this was pretty hairy. Anything you can say about it or any parts of it?
Yeah, I mean, what I can say is that any video game is hard, whether you're working on a game for your phone or working on, a big console game. They're all hard. They all have their ups and downs. The highest are highs and the lowest of lows. Sometimes, you go to E3 and you think that, this is going to be it. It's going to be amazing. You come back to the office and there's a lot of things that still need to be worked on. Right. And every part of the game had their highs and lows. At first it was like, all right, well, we need to make sure the story is, what the story that we want. And, we went through a lot of iteration of the story, and then it was swinging, and then it was combat, and then it was, so every kind of part of the game has those highs and lows. It's just, being confident in your vision and understanding that your team is really, really talented. And something I had to learn as a first-time creative director was, hey, put the trust in the onus into the team, and 99.9% of the time they're going to come up with something much better than you ever had imagined in your head. I had trouble because I was holding us so tight because, most of the time it's out of fear that, oh my God, is it going to be good enough? And if you just kind of trust your team, most of the time, they will always surprise you how good they can make it.
That's awesome. No, don't micromanage. You hired these people for a reason. Let them do their jobs.
I had to learn. It's something, and I'm still learning. And going in the future, I hope I continue to improve upon that.
You mentioned web swinging. One of the best things about this game is the web swinging. Because I finished the main storyline, and I'm going around the city and picking up those darn pigeons and some other things, and I don't mind doing that. With other games, I finish the main storyline, I kind of go on to the next game. But this one, well, I do love Spider-Man, but I don't mind because that web swinging is so fun. I mean, this makes playing after the main mission still fun.
Yeah, thank you very much for saying that. I mean, we had a team of our traversal team working on it from that literally was the first thing we ever did was get the character swinging around a very early version of New York City, and to the point where they pulled the game away from us. We were continuing working on it. And I think, as I've said to people around the office, I go, Spider-Man swinging has spoiled me in terms of how I get around other open world games. I just want to swing around everywhere to get so much than getting in a car or walking around.
No doubt. Jack's last question, he says, there are lots of Spider-Man stories and lots of fans of all those different stories. Which ones were your guiding star, things that you wanted to hold to so that you could know you were making a good Spider-Man game?
Oh, that's a really great question. I think it comes down to three different areas. I think when you look at the original comics, that's where it all, I think you have to start where it all began, and you have to look at those original comics. You have to look at Amazing Fantasy 15 and those first, 6 to 12 issues where you really start to understand what is the DNA of this character. I think that I'm a big fan of Bryan Michael Bendis and the Ultimate series, and I think that what that showed us was, that as much as it is a very true Spider-Man experience, you did see him kind of change things up from time to time. You saw the relations between him and Gwen and MJ were different. Even the look of the Goblin was very, very different than the version you saw previously. Mm-hmm. All those different, what is the, obviously Venom was very different. It was something developed by Pete's dad and his father. Yeah, kind of showed us, hey, if you got the DNA of the character right, you can do things, change things up, and you won't piss off people, I guess. And then the last thing was Dan Slott. We talked to Dan when we started working on the game. Dan was the Spider-Man writer at the time, and he just very early on was talking to him about, since he is a Spider-Man writer, what is his process? And I think what Dan's story showed us was that you can go pretty bold. And even the very beginning, you're like, where's this kind of going? By the end, you're like, that was a pretty amazing ride. For me, I'll be honest, like I didn't know where they're going with Superior Spider-Man. I'm like, Doc Ock taking over Peter's body. Like, it's really weird. But then I started loving it, and I've absolutely fell in love with those comics. So I think that it was just kind of like, sometimes like, hey, stay with us for a little bit. You're going to be okay.
As a fan of most of the Ultimate Spider-Man, please don't make the Goblin Big Hulk like they have in the Into the Spider-Verse. I love Norman just crazy, not a big Hulk, but that's just a personal opinion. YouTubers, we have 40 YouTubers watching us right now. I'm gonna ask them the message board questions that we have, and then I'll get to the YouTube questions. So if you want to start writing questions on YouTube, I will scroll back up and I'll ask them in real time after we get done with the message board questions. So we've got, let me pull up the message board questions. We got Donna Mark. First question. Hi, Bryan. Love the game to death, and I'm eagerly waiting for the next DLC. Got a couple questions. What were the core elements of Spider-Man that you and your team felt had to be captured, and what aspects of past games did you want to avoid to bring those core elements into the game?
I think the biggest thing for us is we wanted to really nail the idea of those worlds colliding. We didn't want this to just be a Spider-Man experience. We wanted this to be a Peter Parker experience. So for us, it was really important to show and experience the human side, the Peter Parker side of the story, as much as it was fun to swing around New York City and fight supervillains. So that for us, that was really nailing the human side, and then making sure that we're representing both sides of the character, whether it's the relatable, vulnerable Peter Parker and the more persevering, confident, humorous Spider-Man.
Yeah. Other questions. What went into the decision to construct an original continuity while staying true to a lot of the foundational basics and history of the character. For example, there's a clear retelling of Doc Ock, Miles Morales, and the fate of Aunt May. Yet with the backpacks, there are numerous references to specific stories from the Ditko area comics. And one of those backpacks, you have a wheat cake recipe.
Yes,
So I think I saw someone made that. I think it's a doable recipe.
they did. They did. Yeah, I think for us it was like I said earlier, was you Spider-Man fans are so loyal and they've read and consumed or watched everything that do you really want to experience the same exact thing you've already read, watched, seen already? Like, we want to give you something different that you didn't know what was around the corner. So that was kind of our driving force of, we don't want to be so different that you don't think this is a true Spider-Man experience, but we also want to give you a chance to go, hey, I'm not really sure what's going to happen. I think I might know what's going to happen, but maybe it doesn't. And I think the example like Doc Ock is a great example of that. Obviously MJ's role, Miles, Peter being older. I mean, just those things where it's different, but it's not so different that you can't connect to the character anymore. Like
the White Spider you were talking about. It's different. It makes it yours, but you still recognize the character.
Exactly.
Big Al has a question. Thank you so much for a compelling game, he says. I've been a Spider-Man fan for 20 years. And it's been a long time since the Spider-Man story hit me as hard as yours did. And it's becoming one of my favorite renditions of the character ever. First question, what are your thoughts and feelings about the Spider-Man 2000 game? You said that was one that you loved the most. He also wants to know about its sequel, Spider-Man 2 Enter Electro.
I don't remember the sequel as much. I think for me it's the one thing about that Neversoft game was just it was a huge cast. I remember Venom being in it, and just it was just a huge cast, and I was like, they really put their time and attention, like you said. For our game, they really understood the lore of the character and those little nods and winks. I think the same thing for that game as well.
Second question, what motivated you to kill off Aunt May? It's a direction that most versions of Spider-Man tend not to take.
Again, I think that it was we were telling a coming of age story for Peter, and we felt like that was what was necessary in order to complete that story arc. Yeah.
Third question, will there be any more spin-off media from the game, such as that hostile takeover? And by the way, thank you for making the very first Mary Jane pop out of your game. They've never made one, and I love this. I think that's so cool.
Yeah, that's great. That's actually, and you can thank the Marvel team for that. Also, Jacinda Chu, our art director, she really pushed for that Funko. So, pretty cool.
Any other media spin-offs coming up? Like there's the novel, there's an action figure I've seen.
Yeah, there's an action figure, there's the Funko Pops, there's the comic, there's the novel. I don't right now know of anything else. Who knows? There are probably things cooking. I don't know. Can't confirm or deny anything right now.
Spider-Geddon is in the comic stores right now.
Yeah, he's a starring role in the Spider-Geddon storyline going on right now. So I'd say that was pretty crazy to see our Spider-Man on a cover of a Marvel comic. Was pretty insane.
Yesterday was Halloween. Did you have any Spider Cops trick or treat? Because on Facebook I've seen so many Spider Cops.
I've seen Spider Cops, shirtless Spider-Man, and then a lot of people at our studio actually dressed up as different Spider-Man. We had Spider-Man UK, we had Spider-Gwen, we had a Spider-Punk, which actually he won. Robbie, one of our members of the core team, our engine team, he actually won the competition. He actually created his own Spider-Punk guitar, which was awesome.
Nice.
We had someone dressed up as obviously our White Spider-Man. So it was awesome. Yeah,
that White Spider suit has been cosplayed a lot at conventions. I mean, you probably see it on your Twitter and Facebook all the time.
Yes, I do. I remember, because we were, obviously, whenever you change the Spider-Man costume, there's a lot of conversation around it.
Yeah.
And you were like, oh God, did we make a mistake? But then I remember it was a convention very soon after E3 when we announced it. I think it probably was even before Comic-Con. We saw people cosplaying as a character and we're like, okay, we're okay.
Masked Guy from Fresno, California says, thanks for creating the best Spider-Man video game to date. What are some of your favorite Spider-Man stories from the comics? Did they influence the game in any way?
I think outside of like a particular storyline, I really tried not to let my favorite storylines totally impact me because I didn't want to. I was in fear that it would subconsciously become the story that we would write for the game.
Yeah.
But I think for example, like obviously, the death of Gwen Stacy is one of my favorites, and then I really love the way that the Ultimate Spider-Man handled the Venom storyline. I actually was a big fan of the Back in Black when Spider-Man. You can start to see if Spider-Man really wanted to use his full strength and how he goes after Fisk, that kind of stuff. I'm actually a really big fan of Spider Island. I think it's a really fun storyline. Like that's just one of those like really out there storylines.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's a lot of them, and obviously, Craven's Last Hunt is fantastic, right?
Oh, yeah.
We don't have Craven in the game, but just like in terms of like, to me, it really showed how much you can make a character very emotional and have really complex motivations, which is great about Craven. And I think that's one of the reasons why to me, it's really about a story about Craven. It's not a story about Spider-Man at the end of the day. And I think that all the classics that people love, and then probably some surprises.
You said Craven wasn't in the game. Were there some villains that were on your wish list that you had to narrow them down and take them out, or?
They were more about the people that ended up being in the game were the ones we wanted. Obviously, I think there was about 3 or 4 other villains we were considering for like, kind of optional content. We just kind of, it was end of the day, they were going to make the rest of the game worse because it was going to take us too much time. Right. So, they fell away, but who knows? Maybe one day.
Having Black Cat be one of the DLCs is great. I mean, the redesign of her suit looks great. I haven't actually downloaded it because I'm going to wait until I 100% it, but I'm looking forward to that. And I've never bought DLC before, so you are getting my money.
That's awesome. Yeah, I'm really proud of that was a lot of hard work for us to do to get roll off Spider-Man and then start working on this DLC. And hopefully when you play it, you'll see that it's really high production values. The story between Black Cat and Spider-Man is really, really good. And it just feels an extension of the main game. So I hope that and there's more fun surprises underway.
Any before I get to the next question on the message board, any areas when you were playing through it you just got stuck? Like, thank goodness that you have the skip option of those circuit boards. I am not a math guy or a science guy, and I wait until that happens. I hit skip because I can't figure it out.
Yeah, I mean,
that always stumped me.
Game development is always hard. I mean, I would say the auto fight definitely took us a long time to get right, because we knew the expectations were so high for it. So that went through some iteration. I would say combat definitely was very challenging because of, again, expectations of the character.
Yeah.
Swinging actually was everything is difficult. It's degrees of difficulty, I would say. Sure. But I think our experience on Sunset Overdrive, which is a very heavy based game on traversal, we were able to get a kind of leg up on that faster. Story was definitely a challenge because we had never told a story this in depth and this really deep. But thankfully the writers, the animators, and everybody in between really rose to the equation, because we know at the end of the day, Marvel is all about story, right? And it starts and ends with story, and we want to make sure we were doing that the right way.
DC Marvel fan guy says you've crafted great renditions of Peter, Otto, Miles, Martin, May. First question: what happened to Martin Lee at the end of the game? Did he get recaptured, or is he still at large?
You'll find out, maybe.
Are Wilson Fisk and Herman Schultz still at the raft, or did they escape too? Are Mysterio and Lizard still at large?
I will tell you, Fisk and Shocker are in raft. I cannot talk about those other characters.
Okay. Is this the last time we'll see Vulture in this universe, considering his terminal condition? These are all potential future game questions, I'm guessing.
Yeah, I mean, you never know. I mean, like, I think, I would love to be able to tell you exactly what the future holds. I think that right now for us, the focus is on making sure those 3 post-release drops, whether it was Black Cat recently, the next one coming out, Turf Wars, is Silver Lining, that those are what we're focusing on right now. And, those other characters, we love them, and only time will tell.
His last question is, we actually saw the bar with no name in the game.
Yeah.
Will we be able to go into the bar and maybe see Boomerang? Or that would just be a fun little mission. That would be a fun thing to go into that bar.
It's an interesting idea.
Yeah, there you go. Javi from Austin, Texas. Thank you for the most amazing Spider-Man game yet. As we just had Halloween, what suit from the game have you most enjoyed?
I like how
See,
you're very positive.
yeah. What suit from the game have you most enjoyed seeing come to life, either at cons or trick or treating? He says, "My son went as Spider Cop this year."
Oh my God, that might be the winner. Someone be Spider Cop, and that's something Spider Cop is a great example of.
Mm-hmm.
Listen, there was never an intention of doing Spider Cop. The original versions of that mission had nothing to do with Spider Cop, and it's one of those missions where it's a little bit heavy on being like a tutorial. Tell you how to kind of deal with the crime system, and it was really one of our writers, Ben Arfa, who was just trying to add a little more. Just a little more spice to the flavor to the experience, and he came up with Spider Cop. And I remember even going to John Pickett, our lead writer, going, "I don't know if this is going to work." And John's like, let's just record it. Who knows? And thanks to Ben, was totally right. And he nailed it, and it took on a life of itself. So that's an example of like, just when a team has a gut feeling, let them go do it. Yeah. And that's what you get Spider Cop.
You'd never predict Spider Cop would be a thing, but I love where he talked like Spider Cop. I thought that was so fun. What animated Spider-Man series is your favorite? He asks.
What is the one everybody loves? Is it Spectacular Spider-Man? Is that?
Oh yeah, with Josh Keaton as Spider-Man's voice. Yeah,
for sure. That's the one.
I love that one. He was Electro, wasn't he, in the game? Josh Keaton.
Yes, it was a villain this time.
Josh Keaton's such a cool dude. I've interviewed him on this show, and he was such a Spider-Man fan. After he got the series, he bought a Mini Cooper and he put Thwip on the license plate, and he put a big Spider-Man thing on the top of his Mini Cooper. Yeah,
Josh is awesome. He's such another talented guy.
Yeah. He asked Mary Jane or Gwen Stacy, what do you like?
Well, MJ's in the game, isn't she?
Ah, there you go. I knew we would get along. Do you know if we'll get
a lot? I like Gwen a lot too. So it's not about that. I hate one, but I just felt like Mary Jane was someone we wanted to explore.
Do you know if we'll get any more toys from Hot Toys? I guess did Hot Toys make the?
I don't know. I just know the ones that we've revealed so far. I don't know anything on that.
Okay. He also wants to know what villains didn't make the cut. We kind of talked about that. Craven, you were thinking about, and
yeah. I really, there's a lot of them. There's a lot of That's one thing. His rogues gallery is pretty great. Actually, Craven was really never considered for Spider-Man.
Okay.
It wasn't really working with the game that we were making. But there's a ton of obviously he's got a lot of great villains. There was never we don't have enough characters to choose from.
Yeah, he's got one of the best rogues gallery of all time.
He does.
Let's go to the YouTube questions. I'm going to work my way up from the bottom to the top. Enigma wants to know: is there a Spider-Man costume that features the Ratchet and Clank T-shirt?
There's not. That's a good idea, but there's not.
Let's see. Ryan. Greeting from Brian's benevolent Insomniac teammate. What can we can do about 3 more questions? Oh, okay. He wants to wrap us up.
Okay.
I'm sorry, Ryan. I just saw this. Too late to ask Brian about any love for Cletus Cassidy.
I don't know. I don't know right now.
Okay.
Isn't he's already going to be he's going to be in the Venom sequel, right? So
Woody Harrelson in that giant afro, yes. Please don't put that in there.
Okay.
Let's see. Anything? Do you see anything you would like to answer in the YouTube chat? Tombstone was great. I played that recently.
Yeah, Tombstone's great. I have to say, looking back, I wish we had more with him. I think that he ended up being a great character, and definitely would. I would think we could expand him further. It's probably one of my bigger regrets for this game.
Awesome. All right, man. I appreciate you taking time. Anything you would the Black Cat DLC is out now.
Yeah,
so you can download that.
4 is coming out soon, and very soon, and then after that, Silver Lining. So it's going to be a very big fall of Spider-Man. So it's going to be pretty fun. So awesome. If you haven't, and the great thing is, you can, it kind of continues the story for where we went with Spider-Man 1. So definitely finish up that game, and you won't have any spoilers when you start Black Cat.
Awesome. All right, Brian, you were a good sport, man. You took a lot more time than I expected, and thank you for giving us time tonight, man.
Oh, of course, my pleasure. I would love to. You're welcome.
All right, man. All right, let me hit stop.